official.
So, listen, guys, Specialty Forest Products, we did our preliminary warm-up for game time wraps, game time coatings for the workshop that you guys put on today. We said we'd come on back. We got Ryan Baker from Specialty and myself from Specialty. We got Daniel here with Ryan. We got Hayden, our future draft pick for our branch here from Specialty. Mike Hoy from Game Time Finish. Chris Pester from Game Time. Jump right into it. Chris, let's start with you. You kicked it off. How'd you get things rolling, and where did you take it?
We started off with the introduction, and we jumped right into sanding sequence, why it's important, what it leads to, and then we went into all of the finished products, intercoat abrasion, vacuuming, tacking. We put down some vinyl, we put down some oil, we put down some water-based. We covered everything that we wanted to cover, and we went 1 minute over time. So I'm proud of that part.
Yeah, Mike, what did you think? You were jumping in on a lot of that. We videotaped a lot of that. So how'd things go? Listen, these things is, you could get one person, you could get 30, you can get 100, doesn't matter. The information I thought that you guys put out there, and I watched a lot of it from behind filming it, was really, really good stuff. And for decades, you hear some of this, and no one ever records it or puts it down, so it's nice to have it. How'd you think things went, start to finish with being able to present everything and having your products here?
Well, first of all, we're just grateful to have the opportunity. You spend years and years and years in an industry, and you just want to try to help make it better. So when we have people coming in that are interested in being better, it's a tremendous opportunity just to share a little bit of knowledge. I jokingly tell people, you have the benefit of my 40 plus years of making mistakes.
Right.
So, as long as you pay attention and you learn from them, everything's always a teaching point. So, yeah, it went really well. I kind of fell back on a past life and was talking to a little bit about what causes some of these sanding headaches, and troubleshooting little stuff with a machine. Oh, just order this or get that and have it changed. It should help fix that problem. And so it's fun for me. I love, because not everything that happens and goes wrong in our day-to-day lives working on a wood floor is necessarily our fault. A machine failure happens or this happens, other things, there's always a cause. So, being able to work around that and how to fix that, sanding at a slight angle, doing whatever, just sharing things like that to maybe take a bad situation and help them expedite their course through that and get out of it a little quicker and get done with it a little sooner, with hopefully not nearly the financial impact that they were initially thinking it might be.
Getting into the nuts and bolts of it, right, Chris, we'll start with you. For people that we didn't podcast that particular part of it, we'll put the video out there. I know you covered grit progression, scratch patterns and things. Give me quickly, what'd you show them and what did people learn from it?
In terms of the sanding?
In that particular part, talking about grit progression and sanding.
So we had the little diagram. I'm not a very good artist, so I took the NWFA page straight out of the manual just to show guys the diagrams about why it's important to not skip more than one grit with big machine. We talked about planetaries and not skipping any grits. We explained to people why that's important in terms of the finish and the durability and the longevity of the floors. We talked about the different ways of intercoat abrasion, buffing, hand sanding, pole sanding, different methods of using sand dollars or using screens, pads, SPP pads. Yeah, we went into the weeds a little bit on
And Mike, were you talking? Did you cover the part on? I think it was dry tacking a floor versus wet tacking a floor.
Yeah, we did. We talked about that as well.
What's the bullet point on that one when people are trying to learn the difference and what's right, what's wrong?
Well, you're better off generally, dry tacking on the raw wood. once you've got finish on the floor, I feel it's more important. You don't, because mainly on the raw wood, you don't necessarily always want to introduce the moisture. So that's counterintuitive to what we do. Not to mention the fact it's a really good way to dislocate a shoulder.
What do you try attacking with? A towel, a sticky cloth?
I like the microfibers.
Microfibers.
They do. They're just, and you want to make sure it's not a treated microfiber, because whatever's treating it could also become a contaminant. So an untreated microfiber works great. I use them in conjunction with a vacuum.
Sure.
If you've already vacuumed the floor and you've got most of the dust up, never 100%, but a microfiber pick up a little bit more. So if you're 12 by 12 room, you do a quarter of that room, vacuum off the microfiber, go back and do some more. Just that way it's not caking and possibly leaving stuff behind.
And then with your wet tack, typically if you're cutting back a sealer or the finish, and you're using a screen or an abrasive pad or a sand dollar or something, or a maroon pad, tacking it with, again, no contaminant, maybe warm water on a microfiber, like damp towel.
Damp towels. A lot of that I'll base on the size of the room we're in. A typical home job, where maybe a big room is 15 or 18 feet, a push broom is more than adequate. Microfibers works good.
Well, if anybody watched the video that we put together too, like in the middle of this, things were going along, and I stole your buffer from you. So all things in this world, right? A guy comes in I've never met in my life, and he comes in and he's Vietnamese, and he smiles. He comes in and says hello, and I didn't see him here. He was coming to see me, apparently. He goes in, and Chris goes, "Sit down." He's like, "No, I'm good." You go, "No, sit down." So he sat down, and Joe comes up and goes, That's the guy to buy the buffer." I go, "What buffer?" I go, "The one they're using?" And he's like, "Yeah." So Chris gets going, everything looks great, and he goes, "I'd like to use your buffer again." I go, "You can't."
It's gone.
And you go, "I would like to use." We don't have it. And then the guy also, we had another buffer. He took our plate. He took our buffing plate with it. Yep. So we did find one and get it back together. You were going to demonstrate the Tampico brush, which I've sold 1 million of them. I've never used one. It seems like a brilliant. What would you have done if we actually had the Tampico brush attachment?
So we could have just run the Tampico over the raw floor. We had a good discussion about it, the benefits. And yes, it's an extra step. Guys have got to spend a little bit of more time, but it solves some of the problems, if you like, problems in inverted commas with grain rays. And it just, if you're trying to get a better product, it's the little things that make the difference. And a Tampico brush is one of those, in my opinion. Yes, it's extra work, but it's going to help you to get a better looking finished product.
So either one of you, did you notice when we got into the application portion of it, did you do what? T-bars, rollers,
Yep.
pads. It's different these days. People use different things back to when we used to be on our hands and knees with a brush. Did this particular group gravitate towards one over the other, or versatile with all?
Yeah, I think more towards rollers.
It's more industry common nowadays. There's so much more finish out there being rolled. The old school days of dragging an applicator have kind of starting to fall by the wayside, I think. But again, and Chris made the point in the class. There's a time and a place for everything. We're known, and we do a lot in the gym floor world where we still use the big wide T-bars. 2 foot, 3 foot long T-bars. But in the residential world, you get into some of these bigger homes when they're doing restoration work or whatever. I can't imagine rolling a 25-foot long room that might be 25 feet wide. I can't imagine rolling that. I don't know why anybody would want to when you could lay down just as smooth a coat of finish in a lot less time. Because at the end of the day, if you're running a business, it's about being profitable. Why not do something in half the time?
Well, I noticed over the years, too, that the finish manufacturers have balanced out the flow rate on water and oil. It used to be 1,200, 800, and in polys it was always 350 to 450. I noticed most instructions, whether it's a good water-based finish or an oil-based, will say about 500 feet, maybe 600 on a top coat and maybe 450 when you're on a raw wood floor. But I thought what was really good about that is it changed us from using 10, 12, 14 different types of applicators to down to just about anything works as long as it has a decent nap. It's like paint. People go in a store and they go, I want my walls smooth. I'm going to buy the roller that says smooth, and it's just not enough. If you look at a flooring roller, they're pretty thick. They look a lot like a lamb's wool. They drag that little curl behind them so it flows like a lamb's wool. So you think that was pretty much what they were looking at. They were comfortable with rolling.
Yeah, I think people that are coming into the industry now are learning to roll. People that have been in the industry for a while have more ability with the T-bar. Guys, from the old days before we could roll finishes. So, yeah, I think it's got a lot to do with the age of people. And, I can pretty much teach somebody to roll over the phone. I cannot come close to teaching you T-bar over the phone. No way.
There's terminology that's gone with that we used to do S-curve. I would never do an S-curve. Well, then you drag it all the way up the floor, S-curve it around, and you wonder why there's an S-curve when you're done and the floor dries. Today, and I watched you do it today, you had finished flopping here and splatting there, and everybody kept rushing over to try to help you fix it. And you guys are like, just leave it alone, please. Because they'll be dazzled when you see how these finishes tighten up when you're done with them. It's amazing. Did you guys cover the thing, and I'd like to get you to talk about it, is solids and the components in a finish. A lot of people are like, oh, mine has more solids. Well, that's not always a good thing, right? It's the chemistry.
Everything when you're dealing with finish, oil, water, doesn't matter. It's more about the recipe. It's just kind of like, making the best brownies or the perfect Manhattan or whatever. When you're taking a bunch of products that are incompatible, but when they're married together in the right ratio, they work in perfect harmony. So, it's not, you can't say this finish is better because it's this much solids, or this finish is better because it has this fast of a dry time, or you got to marry the products together and get a good compromise. Because at the end of the day, the number one thing you're looking for when we build a finish is user friendly, because there is, in this industry today, to the point Chris just made, we have varying levels of experience. And, we have somebody walks in your doors here and they buy our oil and they're a lifelong water-based guy the whole time they've done it, but they suddenly have to do oil. We want them to have an experience where, say, if they talk to you or they talk to Chris or myself, we can say, how do you put your finish down? Oh, you're a roller guy. Okay, well, you're used to doing water, so you're using a 3/8 snap. When you do oil, you want to roll that back and just use a 1/4 inch snap. So you're not holding too much product because the material weighs different. So our big thing is just build products people can use.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference. So to say one's better than the other for this reason or that reason, no.
Isn't it amazing that it starts off with the chemistry and the technical aspects? We need it to come out of that container technically sound to make it easy for that person. But what we need it to do is look brilliant. That's the trick of the chemistry. You got to make it, we call it idiot proof. I just want to spill it on the floor and have it look great. Then the homeowner today is different, isn't it? I used to have a little edge mark in my floor, a little drip here. Nobody said anything. Today, people want it to look like a grand piano. So it puts so much pressure on the manufacturer for this stuff to be absolutely pretty. And we talked about it today. It's freezing out. It's been snowing. There are major manufacturers such as you guys that aren't even shipping. We're getting these phone calls. We don't want to ship. We don't want to ship because we finally got the industry using water-based finish, and you really don't want to move that stuff around. Tell me, Mike, go back when you started. Water-based, waterborne, water anything was a bad word. Where is it then and where is it today?
I use the comparison all the time. There are guys that have been in this business a long time like I have. We remember when 8-tracks and cassettes were cool. Yep. We've come a long way, baby. And I did my first water-based floor in probably 88, 87.
87.
You know, and getting this coat done and being just beside myself with, oh my gosh, it looks so horrible. It's first coat of water seal, you know, and you get in van. That's how long ago it was. And I drove to a payphone and I called the distributor up and I'm screaming at him from a payphone. You know, nowadays I get screamed at through cell phones. Now, anyway.
I had to have a guy come up and I the greatest marketing ever. We go to the NWFA show, 87. It was Aquathane, the greatest protection since bark. I'm like, that's cool. It failed they had to ship a guy in and sand with us and resand all week. People would call and go, oh, we put the dog's bowl down and everything it lapped up went right through the floor. And this stuff was expensive and it smelled bad. If you kept it too long, it would mold. You could smell the stuff. But today, instead of arguing that, oh, I don't want to pay $20 a gallon, these people are paying $150, $160. Is it because they really like it, or just it's the fact that they'll pay anything to have it go right?
Well, that's the big thing. I mean, one, people will pay anything to have it go right because, you know, we talked about it. One of the things we talked about today is don't reuse your applicators. You know, it's like you're going to pay $11 for this or $17 for that. Are you really going to roll the dice? You know, when you got to come back and do a 15 or 1,800 square foot recoat.
Yeah. Charge your customer for that. What do you think back in the day, the percentage of oil, you know, jobs versus water, and then in the middle, and where it is today?
I mean, it was in the late 80s, 99 point something percent of the jobs were all oil, or I should say solvent, because regionally, you go down into Florida, people use Swedish finish, or out west. You know, in the upper Midwest, we still used a lot of moisture cure urethane, but it was some kind of solvent-borne coating. You know, to the inverse today, where overall of the industry, the wood flooring industry, it's probably 60-40 oil still.
In some markets, it's 50-50.
But when you move into the residential side of the business nowadays, it's probably 65-35 water, just because everybody's about, it's got to be done fast. It's got to be done fast. They're worried about odors. They're worried, you know, what have you, you know? So, yeah, I mean.
It used to be that the pro floor guy drove everything. And with the advent, you said it, from I have to go to a payphone to I have a pager. You know, I'd be like, don't worry, I'm a doctor, I've got this. Pager meant you had to go find a payphone.
Right.
And then later you have the technology now where the internet and social media, now the consumer drives it. I looked online and I want this, I want that. Ryan, you've been doing this a long time as a distributor. Go back to when you started. Think of what you sold. What were you selling back then for finish and applicators, and where did it get to today?
Oil base, lamb's wool, applicators. We didn't sell any rollers because around here, east of 495, nobody rolled. It was west of 495. I don't know why. Who taught them, you know, who their mentors were. When I started, we had Pacific Strong for water, and then Bona came out with, Street Shoe. Bona came out with Mega, and then Traffic came out, in the 2000?
A lot of Curator, Self-Seal, all those things.
But getting guys to try water base was kind of like getting guys to try pre-finished flooring, because they were used to what it was when it first started, or engineered flooring, because it was, it's pioneer products and very resistant to it.
How many lamb's wool applicators, 2 decades ago, did you have on at shelf at all times?
When I worked in Stoughton, it was pretty much, that's all that they
cases.
That's
cases,
all that
cases.
they used. Yeah.
How many do my shop now? I think
None.
I have like 6 in there.
It's the Duraline paint pad, the rollers, some synthetic lamb's wools.
Sure.
And just the rollers.
But you and I both know too, these guys went from a few bucks to like $160 a gallon, catalyzing it, and they did learn to charge the consumer for that. Remember too, people were charging $150 a foot one's giving oil, one's giving water. If you're using water, you have to charge
Think about
more for foot.
how many jobs in those days was the finish written in the spec?
Oh, it was.
Yep. Today, it's like, it's got to be traffic, raw, whatever. It's written in the spec. That who wrote the finish in a spec in those days?
The original specs were there, and guys like me would have to fight it because we didn't have access to it. Somebody would put in, you need Street Shoe XL, and you're like, I don't even know where to get it. You want me to not quote this? And that those things start to change over time, and the industry starts to change. So what about when you boys started talking about, I think you were talking about tinted sealers, tinted coating, white floors, et cetera. Where did that conversation take you?
Yeah, that started with the pigmented sealers. And that's a whole topic in itself. We talked about the difficulty of putting down the white pigmented sealers.
Right.
We talked about some tips and tricks to make that easier. Here at Game Time, we're actually talking about tinted sealers in a slightly different methodology that hopefully we'll be coming out with before too long. Gym guys use a lot of tinted sealers because some of them don't want to use stains. There is a whole world there of opportunity and, ways of being able to change things on the fly. If every contractor's been in that situation where you've stained the floor, the homeowners come home, you haven't got poly on it yet, but they tell you it's too light or it's too dark. So being able to play, mess with the coatings as you go a little bit, we discussed all of that, yeah.
Mike, you covered, I think, dry times, inner coating abrasion. One of the things I like is we didn't use a lot way back in the day. We had a lot of names for it. It's called hot coating. So tell me what you explained to these people about hot coating, dry times, abrasion. Did the attendees find anything particularly new they hadn't thought of before, et cetera?
Well, yeah, probably one of the biggest things I try to open people's eyes to when they talk about hot coating products, having a complete grasp of the environment they're in.
But what is hot coating a product?
Hot coating is applying a coat of polyurethane or sealer over an existing coat of polyurethane or sealer within a certain time frame without abrading it. But the biggest thing when I talk about that with people is trying to teach them that this works great, but you also have to understand the environment that you're in. What kind of heat, how different kinds of heat affect it. Like here in the Northeast, you got a lot of forced air heat, which could be gas or propane, which is a wetter heat than say something that you're in an older home that's got a boiler and they've got the radiant hot water heat, those which are really dry, and how that changes everything because, you go from being in a house that you're coating that's at 35% relative humidity versus being in a house that you're coating in that's at 11 or 12% relative humidity. So, and just having an understanding of that so that you can avoid a problem.
Well, one of the problems are, I think sometimes when you hot coat on something that's like an oil, which is a petroleum based, like when you do stains, Chris, right? You're like, well, if you've got an oil stain and an oil poly, they tend to blend. You got an oil stain and you hot coat onto a water-based finish, it's probably going to be a problem. So it's probably not just adhesion, but Mike, wouldn't it also be off-gassing issues? Like now you're trapping everything?
There's off-gassing issues. There's, and we deal with it all the time is what kind of stain are people using? Because, we would like to all think that in a perfect world, they're using a stain or stain and seal type product that's designed for wood flooring specifically. But again, with the advent of the internet, the big box stores and all this other stuff, you got Joe homeowner goes and picks up a stain that they want. Oh, this is the color I want. And it's, a brand that maybe isn't great on wood floors. I won't pick on any.
No, but let's say you go to some hardware store or paint store, just pick some stuff up.
Right. You should have something that is actually made for wood flooring or that type of thing versus a furniture stain, which is typically higher in linseed oil. The more that's in there, the slower it dries. You don't realize that a lot. And on the when you read the back of the can, it says, dry in 12 hours. Dry for what?
Right.
Got to spray lacquer on it, maybe. But if you're gonna put a coat of water base on top of it, bad. Then if you go to that same company's, on the shelf, 3 rows down, you see their water-based polyurethane, and you read the back of the label, and it says, if applying over our stain, wait 72 hours.
Yeah.
There's a big disparity between 12 and 72.
Yeah.
So, it's all that kind of stuff that we talked about.
There's a lot of, too, people will say, I use it all the time, and I never had a problem. And you go, what did you do today? Hickory. How many of those have you done? Well, this is my first one. Well, what are we talking about? Well, you coat oak every day. Doesn't mean it's going to apply to hickory or maple or an exotic or something different. I want to ask Daniel Baker a question. Daniel, you need to slide over with your pops there. You two guys get together. It's so Daniel Ryan works out of our big facility in Hopedale, and Daniel has luckily traveled all over with us. He's been to NWFA show. He's been down to he's been out to surfaces with us and that. Daniel, you're not specifically likely to get into the flooring part of the industry, but you've been doing this, helping us out a long time. Hanging around today, what kind of things did you pick up out there?
Just the importance of keeping everything clean and keeping all the tools clean, and like the parts that you change around, like the pads and everything, always like new or like pretty much brand new, and keeping everything off the floor and keeping all that just very clean.
What's easier to run, a flooring buffer or a bucket loader?
Probably a buffer.
You look like you're.
I'd say a buffer.
It's not easy when you first grab one, is it? There's a lot of little, right, Chris? It's our favorite day of training because someone's going to really struggle with the thing. And until they know it.
That was a little disappointing. We had 2 newbies on the buffer today, and they both did better than we were hoping. There was no accidents. Nobody went through the wall.
Well, you got to understand, Daniel can. How old are you, Daniel?
16.
So he can when you see out there in the snow, you'll see like an entire earth mover just sitting there. He knows the key's there. He could jump in one, grab the key, and run the thing because that will be his vocation. So you have the mechanical aptitude, the mechanical background. I thought it was interesting to watch you run a buffer. Have you ever had to run like our guys do a big machine? We call it the big machine, the bigger sander, the floor sander, or the edger, or the buffer. Have you been around for those events? No. So that was your first time behind a machine?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's not easy, is it?
No, sir.
This is my point. Now give the microphone back to your father. You're trouble. Going to the airport with this kid, you get arrested.
He did great. They
He's the
both
nicest
picked
kid.
it up so
I
fast.
asked this for a reason because you guys know this. The more we do this, the better we get at it. And you go from just learning. You've probably done this on your first floor. I remember my first floor. I gave the floor to the lady for nothing. I didn't think I should charge her. I never wanted to do a floor again. I thought it was like a Stooges episode. The house is going to fall down. I was so freaked out. We get good at it and we study it and we could talk on a master level. And that doesn't help us because people walk in the house and they go, I should have had my husband do it. That looked easy. Daniel, was that easy? Just the easiest machine is the buffer. Was that easy right out of the gate? No, see? And he's polite about it too. Most people would not say sir, they would just swear. So yeah. Right, Ryan, how many times have we seen people calling, I don't know why this is such a big deal. Like the guy's, he didn't move my furniture back. He didn't put my refrigerator back. What we do, we sometimes make it look good. I watched Mike apply in the training session, the vinyl logos, et cetera. And really, you should make it look harder. Because everybody's going to go, well, that looks easy. It was brilliantly easy. Like I watched him take a card, right? It looks like a credit card, but it's padded, feather and bubbles out. I'm watching him going, oh, he was done with that a half an hour ago. He's like, I know you were being really precise about it, which is good. It didn't really take that long to make it look absolutely perfect. When you're putting those down, is it like when I do a gym, I've got to get poly down, abrade it, get it clean, get it smooth? I'm not just throwing that over the grain of the wood, right? You're putting it on a surface?
Correct. You want the floor to be as smooth as you can get it. Kind of cherry picked that panel because it had birch on it, which is not a super grainy wood like an oak
I noticed you didn't go down to the white oak or the fir or the red oak, and I'm like, good for them.
Right.
Stay up to what's closest to maple.
We want it to look good so that when your customers come in and see it, they go, "Ooh, I like that idea." Because we were talking with a couple of the guys out there about, when you do this on oak, you want to make sure you got a couple coats of sealer on it, because whatever's under it, it's like being under a magnifying glass when you look, if whether it's a speck of dust that starts to look like a marble, or, just a tiny little hair out of your mustache or beard that looks like a 6 foot long python. It's just horrible.
Well, he mentioned that. He said something like, if there's a hair under this, it'll look like, I think you said a python. I'm like, wow, okay, that's not good.
I usually use the word worm, but
There was worm. You said worm.
yeah, but I figured since I didn't have the visual aid, I would make it more dramatic.
All right, I want to ask Hayden a question. All right, so Hayden Van Beek, who is, what are you, Supreme Allied Commander of our Plastow location? We're not a real
One
big
could
title
say, yeah.
company, but it's the most handsome guy in the company. Anyway, when you've been doing this a while, your customers still have a lot of misconceptions. Like, do they say silly things like, "Well, I only use oil," or "I only use water"? Like, what's some of the stuff you see out there that you still shake your head?
Oh yeah,
and
a
think,
lot of my guys just they're so into their ways of they almost don't want to change, and I understand that, but at the same time you want to get it through them that there's easier ways, and for me, like, people look at me, I'm younger, and they think, oh, what does he have to know? And a lot of times that also makes it difficult, but we do try to, there's always things to learn, and like you said, like every wood's different, birch, red oak, white oak, how it applies and everything, and just learn something new, and always good things
I had
to take
fun
away.
with Daniel and with Hayden when we went out to like Vegas, because like I'm like Chris or Mike, my head's so full of stupid floor stuff. Like, what do you do with it, right? We can talk, we'll have a little, but hanging out with them, it'd be like looking at somebody looking at the Mona Lisa. They're staring at like walnut on a pre-finished sample board, and they're like, ah. And I'd walk up and go, it's not what you think it is. And they go, what? Remember, where were we, Dan? We were someplace, and they had something so wrong, and I'm whispering it in their ear. I go, now this is all wrong. Don't listen to anything this guy said. It is so much fun for guys who, with a slate is clean, for us to bring up through and say, okay, here's what you're going to look out for. And one thing, as you boys know, is when you're working the counter, when you have people come in and you're a distributor, you learn early not to be the know-it-all. You only give them what they need, and they will come and ask for it, but you don't go, what the hell are you doing that for? You should never do that. I get that at places. I'm like, really? You're going to tell me, all right. And you don't want to be rude. You don't want to be arrogant, but you know what you're talking about. And I always say it's when you meet other floor pros, and Joe and I'll travel around. I go, I'll be back. I got to go piss around the lamppost. It's like, I'll go to Chris and I'll go, hey, how you doing? I'm Steve. You go, I'm Chris. And I go, yeah, you been here a lot? Oh, 15 years. Yeah, I've been here 18. How long you been doing floors? 30. I've been doing it 75. How old are you? 29. It's like guys have to jockey around the lamppost a bit and figure it all out. Well, I learned a long time ago, don't be the know-it-all at the counter. If they need, they'll ask. Or you might say, by the way, if you're buying that, you guys can read the room, right? Hayden, you've seen this. A guy will come in and you'll go, that guy just bought a roll of 12 grit sandpaper, 80 grit screens, and I hope he's not going to my parents' house. It talks to you, doesn't it? You have the science of it all. Did you guys find with the attendees today, were there any surprises? Was there anything that caught them off guard? Did they pretty much know their stuff, or were they surprised by a few things?
Well, we had a couple of guys that were newbies. Melvin had never run the buffer, actually hadn't put coats down. So we had him putting coats down. Daniel also put coats down. So it's always good to see people, just see the confidence that they get. And they have a little bit of experience, realize that it's not that hard. Not rocket science. Going to be all right.
When they got into the finish portion of it, did any of them bring up the little anomalies that do go wrong, like lap lines or holidays or streaking or adhesion issues or VOC questions? Any of that part of that stuff come up?
Yeah, I think we touched on most of that. As we talked about in the other podcast, we're thinking of doing a problems, causes, and cures seminar. Where we'll be able to get into those questions more. Today, we got through a lot of information in a short amount of time. And I'm glad that it's videoed because we all forget where we're at, what we were saying. It's great to be able to go back and see it again and reiterate that information.
Now Mike's gonna go. He'll be backstage going, "Today, worm python." He's gonna come up a whole new dialogue.
Yeah, gotta have a new one.
So one thing I want to give Game Time props for, because I'm the big cheerleader of, and I want you to just explain real quick, is when I was doing gym floors, we'd go buy stencils from Game Time. Thank God, because we used to hand paint everything in the gym and pickleball courts and logos and things. And I would get stencils. Thank God, like it says ABC, put it down, paint it, put it down, paint it, put it down, paint it. Then you came up with vinyl, and of course we all said you can't do that. You can't put vinyl down, it'll peel, it'll never work, to which you said, not in our company. Explain that, because I think that was something that people paid attention to today.
Yeah. I think Bob Saar said, hold my beer.
He did.
And he went and figured it out. There are apparently thousands of types of vinyl. And he put in a lot of research. I think it was, years before getting everything, down pat. Today Mike showed how easy it is to put down small little vinyl logos. We put down a Patriots, we put down the Specialty Forest Products logo, and we put down a Game Time logo. They went down in 5 minutes.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Maybe not even. And the small ones, that's easy. The big ones that the gym guys are doing, putting pieces together, and these, vinyl on a gym floor can be 100 foot long. And they could put, 4, 5, 6 pieces together. So that takes a bit more skill. We do have the training school that we hold in Arkansas right now for those guys. That's a 3-day training.
And let's visualize this. I've seen some beautiful work, side courts, everything. I've seen you guys do an entire gymnasium, an entire sport, how do you roll out an entire vinyl floor? Then it's all coated after, right?
Oh, yeah.
They cut, that's all coated after.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, really, it all boils down. It's from the inside out. No different than if you were in the gym world. If you're marking your court out, with the center court line, the circles, the lanes. You got to know where the middle of the floor is. Period.
Is it all graphic works, or is the actual sport lining in the vinyl too?
It can be either way.
Either way.
We do, we've done it to where, we print the whole floor, game lines and everything. Sometimes, if you'll get into a building, and then if we did that, the 3-point arc or free throw lane might be off, because when the hoops were hung, they're off by 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch, so you have to adjust the floor to that. So for that reason, we can lay out a whole floor with vinyl, no worries. But just because if it's the building might not be 100% true, it's always better, in my opinion, to paint the game lines on top. So we would go in and get the vinyl, all the vinyl applied to the floor. We would get the first bit of coating on top of it, then come through, maroon pad, whatever, micro braid, that coating, and then tape out all your game lines.
And paint them.
And paint them the old way. Yeah, just do it the old-fashioned way. Because if you do print them all into a floor, then there's always that chance that, on this end, the 3-point line's 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch longer than it is on the other end, just because the hoops are off.
Yeah, and that's okay in high school ball and a few things, but if it's NCAA or Olympic or anything, you can throw a whole season out. That's got to be dead on.
Yeah, it's a stop, drop, and fix it situation.
Do you think like the logos you guys are working with, let's say they're 2x2, which was nice. Are the full spread ones in a gymnasium, are they like 6-foot sheets? They're not the whole width of the gym.
No, they're typically, the vinyl rolls we start with and print on are, I want to say, about 52 inches.
Okay.
That's really, I don't run the print side of the business, but they're give or take, I know they're just over 4 feet. So yeah, we print everything to size, and then it's trimmed back so that we know that it's square and true, so that when it drops on the floor, and you have to apply the second panel against the first panel, that we've got perfectly straight, true edges.
I was watching you, like sometimes I've done just the company logo on a van, or let's say you put your credit card thing on the front glass window, right? You put it on smooth as you can. You take a credit card, you smooth it out, you push the bubbles to the outside. Something that big, are you using the old pin in the middle technique, or like how do you get the bubbles? You have to work them all the way to the outside.
All the way to the edge. No, when we do the big runs of vinyl, it's not a one person job. It could be three.
And people, but give that address because I've watched your stuff online. What's your website for that?
GameTimeWraps.com.
Yeah, go
For
to
the vinyl.
go to our YouTube channel, Game Time Wraps.
Yeah.
And look at the YouTube channel, and you can see everything.
You must get a lot more calls. Like I haven't done a gym in ages. It's usually somebody who knows somebody. I just got the quotes at UMass Amherst because we're connected to you guys. And they're like, oh, we'd be much more interested. And I told the guy, sell it that way. No paints, no chemicals. It's perfect. What do all universities want? The eco-friendly, roll it out, coat it, no waste, no nothing. And it's perfect.
No, it is. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. The number one thing is it's got to be impeccably clean, because going back to my point of a mustache hair turning into a python or a worm, multiply that by 7,000 square feet. It's a lot to fix. So yeah, when we roll those out, we use a lot more moisture. And I don't mean that in a bad way. We use enough to keep the vinyl so that it can be moved and manipulated better. And, we're putting it down with typically a 20-inch squeegee, rolling down the middle, and then you work everything to the edges. So yeah, every 100%, every square inch of the floor is addressed with a vinyl, with a squeegee when we're putting down, whether it's, 100-foot side courts, with the border and all the fancy, whatever graphics in the middle of it, or the entire floor.
So you have a really nice, 12-foot center key or 6-foot or whatever working on. What's the protocol here? I would think now you're into graphic art, so that you get your logo and you send vector art. Would that be the way to do it? That goes to you guys?
Vector files. Yeah,
Vector files.
Yeah,
okay.
we direct everything through my counterpart, Stephen Schilling, who runs the print side of our business for Bob. And then it gets handed off to Marcus, the lead designer, and the team. If it's just a vector file, if they send us a vector file, there's not a lot of design involved because it's already been done. It's just a matter of us figuring out then it's more of a quote than it is a design consult. But we've had people send us pictures off of their iPhone Pro and say, this is what we want here, and this is what we want there. They've grabbed something.
It's a good start, at least.
They've grabbed something off of Pinterest. So at that point in time, then there is design involved, because it's all got to be converted over into a vector file, because that's what we use, in the print shop. So yeah, I mean, but pretty much you can hang yourself out the car window, snap a picture, and it can be put on a floor.
Well, and I'd like to get this so that we have it recorded, but one of the things that, and me, Chris, I'm always trying to find the pitch, the angle, but from a pro's point of view, I don't like to sell. I'd like to find solutions for people. One of the things, we had a customer, he was so excited about, instead of hand painting logos in his game room, we're going to put some Patriot, Celtics, this and that. What did we come up with? That's not legal. It's legal. You can do it. We can do it. What can they get from you? Is there anything they can't get from you guys?
No.
Right.
We can do 3D designs. We can do, pretty much anything. I know that one day I'm going to be putting down a logo of somebody in his golf swing.
Yeah, I heard you say that.
Right. I mean, you just know that some egotistical guy is
Hey,
going to want that.
hey.
Right?
He said it, and I have a picture. I'm going to show you this. I have a picture of me, and I'm like, I look at it and I go, I have a good golf swing. I guess I'm the egotistical
go.
guy.
There you go.
Yeah. See if we invite you again. So,
But
all right.
let me just go back there for a second, if I can. So yeah, we have a team of graphic designers full time. So you can call up one of those guys and talk to them and say, I don't really know what I want to put down. Can you help me out? And they will help you out. I have had a gym company send me a design that the gym company said, we really don't like this. I don't think the school's dead set on it. Could you give us maybe some variations? And I went, sure. And tentatively sent it over to design company. And like 3 hours later, there were 3 different options on the email. And the school said, wow, actually, I really like that one. So they went with that. We turn it around super fast. So yeah, there's so much potential, and you can do pretty much anything you want to do.
Is either Mike or Chris, you think if we did another workshop in the future, which is what we plan on doing, and I would love to have you come here and just do a sport workshop or some type of training or whatever. We have a few gym companies. I think we could get them all here. Is there something, if we did this again, you would add? You're like, we should do next time. We should add this, that, or the other thing. Is there something you skipped over, something you'd like to add?
I like the idea for the sports guys. We just need a big enough area. We need pretty much a half court. So we could do, a full, a big school. But your question was, what else could we have done today for the
No, is there
residential?
something that you'd add? Like you and Mike are going to go, what would have been good? Maybe we would have added this or that or the other. Make
I
it
would
longer,
get, I
make
would
it
get more
shorter.
technical.
Yeah.
Mainly because the bigger the space you're working in, the harder it is to keep consistently climatized. And stressing the importance of that. When can you hot coat? When shouldn't you hot coat? I kind of went into to give props to. I went back to I always reference back to the old 607 Wagner, the dual depth moisture meter. It's like the true way to know. When you should and shouldn't do this is by knowing the surface moisture of the wood, when it's raw, when it's coated, when it's dry. That's the best way to look. What's my hot coat window? That's it. I mean, that's the truest way to, if you're trying to push the envelope, how fast can I hot coat it? Now, if it's like, how long do I have? That's another story. Just get on it within this amount of time, if you know the temp and the humidity. But it's one of the things, that I constantly harp on in the gym floor world is, boy, when they're checking slab and they're starting to deciding it's time to start laying out subfloor and the maple, they are taking 3 times a day. They're documenting temp and humidity like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Once that last board's nailed in, it's like those tools have never existed. Granted, they're getting better with the hobo meters, the little data loggers that they're
loggers, yep.
Stashing in the gyms. That's great. But if the journeyman who's there working on the floor doesn't have access to that data, he doesn't realize that, I just pulled this 12,000 square foot gym and I've got 2 coats of water base down today. And, since I got here at 8 o'clock this morning, I've raised the relative humidity in this gym space by 26%, simply just by applying 2 coats of water base. Yeah. And they don't think about that stuff. And then, they come back the next day and, depending on the time of the year they're sanding the floor, I got my 2 coats on yesterday and the floor's kind of cupped today. Well, let's talk about this, that, and, and they don't pay attention.
I just did a 6,000 footer, and I went out to set the job up, starting the center, splying it out, the whole thing. And what I got there, the kids, I'll call them, they're 40 years old. They come in and they go, "Oh, we've never done anything this big." I was just up there to let them in. I stayed the whole time. They had never done a wide open 6,000 feet. So I got weed whacker line and I ran it every 5 feet, nailed it into the floor, pulled it, nailed it into the floor. Back in the day, we would put washers and things in. So everybody watching us was like, what the hell is that? Why are you leaving that in the floor? The engineer came by and he goes, ooh, yeah, good idea. We didn't think of that. So this is pre-finished. 2 days after we got done, those gaps were gone. It's just such a large volume. Imagine if we didn't put them in there. It would be crazy. I want to bounce over to Ryan before we wrap things up. You've been doing this. We've been doing this together for a long time. And one of the things that you and I always talk about on the side, and I believe we're a lot alike. People will say, wow, you're a good salesman. No, we impart knowledge. I know you'll come back. If you know you can go do a hardwood floor and I can help you, you'll go, I trust that person. It's more important we help you run your business successfully. And I talk to Joe about that all the time. Don't tell them where to spend their money or what to buy or what to do. Just help them, and they'll ask you and be helpful. Ryan, you're famous for this. That's how you operate. You brought people here today. Every time I do anything, Ryan goes, I got people. I'll go talk to them. What drives you to go after these guys like some of us do and go, hey, I want to tell you what's going on today and I'd like you to attend?
I think just caring, really honestly, just caring about them and having respect for what they do. We want them to be successful. And part of that is if we have something to give them, to equip them, like today, do it. You know, the more successful they are, the more successful we are, the more successful the industry is. One of the questions I've been having more and more as these guys get older, and we were just talking about this, is helping them to look at their profession with a sense of pride. Not like sinful pride, not arrogance, but like excited for what they're accomplishing and what they have accomplished with their career. A lot of these guys, as they get to the end, they're kind of fed up, they're beat down. We don't want them to feel that way. We want them to feel excited. We want them to feel invigorated. And part of that is learning something new and honoring them, you know, for what they bring and what they do, and honest work for an honest pay. You know, those things, those old-fashioned things are important. And so, you know, days like today where we can do that and listen to them and pass something on, we need to do this. We need to do more of it.
Well, you can spot it too, right? You think after all these years, and I mean, if you look over there's an NWFA manual from 80-something that's hand done, and they would Xerox, if anybody remembers what that is, or photocopy, and then we would sketch things and mail it to the NWFA, and they would photocopy, put it. Today, I mean, they've got books and all this other stuff. You would think, with all the technology and computers and everything, it'd be an easier go of it. Ryan, I don't think our customers are having it any easier doing a hardwood floor today. I think it's gotten more difficult. More machines, more finishes,
more
more
technical.
options.
Higher expectations. The expectations have never been higher and never more unrealistic. And, you know, these guys aren't doing some of these jobs, these big jobs. They're not doing these jobs for like a plumber or a bricklayer or an electrician. They're doing them for, you know, a hedge fund manager or a, you know, a computer programmer or a doctor. And they don't necessarily understand what it takes to get and fulfill that expectation. Microphone kickoff.
No, something's ringing.
And, you know, so the expectations have never been higher, and the appreciation and the understanding on the part of the customer, the gap has never been wider for what it actually takes. And perfection has become the standard, which is unfair and unreasonable. And these guys need to know that somebody's in their corner, and I think that's us.
Yeah.
It has to be us.
Yeah.
Because I went on. A contractor called me the other day. Oh, blah, blah, blah. They're complaining about this. They're complaining about that, and they keep going back to their dining room table.
Oh, yes.
Look at how perfect this is.
The piano. Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, okay. Well, so what are they're complaining about some, okay, you brought in snow melters and on a water-based coating, and it's kind of marred it up a little bit and this and that. Yeah. Tell them to set those, when they walk in, take those work boots off or those shoes off, go set them on their dining room table for 2 or 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And then let it dry overnight. And then come back and clean the table and tell them to call you at that point.
Yeah. You go back to the National
just like, you know.
Wood Flooring Association. There's a lot of help there. There are certain little things they've coined, like you should only look at a floor from average height, et cetera. And at least you can go back when somebody's being a pain in the butt and go, you're on your hands and knees with a flashlight. If we were to go to court, if this really came down to it, at least I have the National Wood Flooring Association, who is the governing body of everything, that did all the research. Not just the NWFA, came from guys like Mike and Chris, myself, all sorts of people over the years submitting and writing and testing, that they can say, Your Honor, this is just unreasonable, that you expect your floor to be perfection and last forever. We talked about it today. I had a customer, he said, customer called, she's very unhappy with the floor. I said, okay, well, when did you do it? He goes, 3 years ago. I go, did she call you 3 years ago? No, she just called me now. Did she pay you? Yeah, 3 years ago. What is wrong? There's nothing wrong with your floor. You're not responsible for that. And like Ryan just said, the key word to all of this is expectations. Everybody wants everything. They think a floor comes out of a computer. They think that their house is a museum. It's just not. But I will say this, the chemistry of the finishes, including the pre-finished, et cetera, are way better and safer and cleaner and dry faster and perform better than we ever had. Ryan, as a distributor, when you and I talked about doing events like this, because it used to be fly to the other half of the country, go to California, Las Vegas, anywhere there's an amusement park or a casino, right? They've avoided New England for decades. As a distributor, why do we want to do these things? Because you and I have said we want to do a bunch of training seminars in every category.
Again, I just think it gets back to, if the expectations are what they are, as high as they are, we need to help to the best of our ability our customers to meet those expectations as much as possible. We don't want them to get into trouble. We don't want them to get beat out of $30,000 because they didn't know a piece of knowledge that we could have given them. I would feel terrible. I do feel terrible because I'm learning as we go, and I'm like, geez, had I known that 6 months ago, I could have said something to this guy, and he would have known better, and he wouldn't have got himself in that situation, and he wouldn't have cost himself a resand or a rip out or all the headaches or just the lost time. So the more we know, and the quicker that we can get that knowledge to our customers, the less likely it will be that it will cost them time and money. And I think that needs to be a priority for us. It's not just about selling product. It's about caring about our customers. Right.
Everything we do in life, everything we do in work pulls us ahead, right? So a guy's sanding a floor, it's done. In order to keep his life together, I got to move on to the next one. We sell something, help somebody move forward. When you start getting claims and they're dragging you backward, now you're not doing new work. I worked with a product worldwide. It won awards. I have no idea why. It was a 98% failure rate. And we spent 2 years with our outside sales guys just doing inspections and claims. And it made no money. That's why sometimes when people come in with new products, we're very wary that we don't want to be cruel. We don't want to be mean. We let's say, a pre-finished manufacturer, you look at it and there are problems. And I hope you understand that, because we're done with you if you don't listen and this fails.
The other layer to this is I was with my son one day because he wants to run heavy equipment. Now he might want to do floors on the side. I don't know. I'll talk to him on the way home. But we were at the zoo one day. He was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and there was a guy on a bucket lift. And I said, I want to talk to this guy when he gets off. And he came over, and I said, my son wants to do what you do for a living. What advice do you have for him? He said, find another profession. I said, that's not exactly what I was hoping you would say. But when these guys face this tsunami of problems and issues, and they lose money or they lose time, and it's constant negative, 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 what are they saying to the next generation coming up, where one conversation could turn a kid toward or against the industry? And because of this constant negativity of issues and complaints, he may say something to turn a young person away from the industry instead of towards it. And how many of those conversations are taking place? That's hurting the industry. That is harming the future of our business. And we need to help avoid that by getting ahead of these things and helping these guys live better lives as much as what's within our control, so that when they have those conversations, it's more encouragement than discouragement.
Oh, Ryan, I got involved. I was selling industrial equipment. Guy came to the counter all the time, floor company, and he goes, "I'd like you to come work for me." And he offered me $20-something an hour in 1985. I'm like, wow. And I love woodworking. And it didn't work out, but the idea was, wow, if I'm going to stay in this, I'm going to have to train myself. I'm going to have to, pick up all this knowledge. And back then there was really nowhere to get it. We're hoping today to be able to offer these things to our customers. And the only way to do it is really to partner up with guys like Game Time, one at a time. I know it's fun. Sometimes you go to these big trade shows and everybody's there. But to as a vendor, Chris, you're here all the time. We owe it to you to give you that time, represent it. And when you leave today, well, Joe and I will say, well, you know what? We need to give a solid 3 weeks. Leave his stuff up. Pay attention to it. Talk about Game Time because you did, put the time in. And Ryan and I talked about this for years. Let's get back out there and educate people and train people. Your story about Daniel, there are sometimes that is the best advice. Don't do this. I talk to people all the time about showrooms and setting up this and that. And there was a woman in Washington, D.C., and I said, don't get into flooring. You know why I said that? She knows nothing about it. Zero. She was told by a big manufacturer that they would finance everything and she would be a franchise. I'm like, but you're going to get eaten alive. But you don't. I go, tell you what, hire somebody like me and open up a distributorship. Don't skip over that retail stuff. Most people get a retail store, they're shutting it down. So what do you think she does to this day? How do I sell this? How do I get out of this? She's like, they told me I'd make 50% profit. They told me there are times when that is the answer. What would somebody like Daniel, a pro can see it, talk with you. I've talked with him. He's going to be moving heavy equipment. He's the next Bob the Builder. That's his thing. You love it, right? Mike Hoy said this earlier. We are where we are. We're here where we're supposed to be. When I got out of doing flooring and contracting and I got a job in Boston at Patriot, shirt and tie and everything, I would go home at Christmas, duck into the mall to get Christmas gifts for people, and they'd fawn all over you because you had the tie and the shirt. The years before when I was a flooring guy, I had more money and I was always filthy, and they would look at you like, oh, can't he just go away? I feel like, Julia Roberts on Rodeo Drive. I have money. I got money. You just said it. These poor guys, they come in every day. When my dad was in the hospital, I would go see him, and he'd look at me and he goes, that's management? I'd have wood dust on me. I'm a division leader, right? We do it all the time, right, Ryan? Ryan see me with a scalpel and a scope on the floors, carving up some part of a piece of flooring. It's what we do. These poor guys, whenever we do something, we like to invite, Ryan will say, tell their wife to come and tell their kids to come, because they get to look at us and go, my husband's that important to you guys. You're like, yeah. What do you need? He is that important to us. And we know he comes home filthy and dirty. You think that's what he wanted? But he's good. And that flooring contractor is where they were meant to be. We're born with these gifts or things. I always wanted to be the greatest floor guy ever, the next whoever. It wasn't me, but I love it. And I like this part of it. I like to share it, study it, put it out there, and be hands-on like that. I don't have to really do that anymore. But anytime you guys show up, I will jump right in. Like last night, we're nailing and we're putting machines together, buff and vacuum coating. Ryan and I have talked about this for decades. One of the reasons I came to specialty is Kevin, the owner, was saying, we need to do more, be bigger, be smarter, be better, be faster. Because these other big companies, what are they doing? We have wood and carpet and vinyl and tile, and we don't want to be that. I mean, we sell some LVT. Why? It looks like wood, and it goes in the places we can't put wood. So it helps facilitate that. So we've put a lot of stuff together in the last few days. I want to thank our Game Time guys, Mike Hoy and Chris Pester, Ryan Baker, our manager from down in Hopedale. Thank you for bringing your son, Daniel. Hayden, I'm putting this right on the recording. You will be working here soon. If you want my job, it's yours. You're just going to have to wait to clutch it out of my hands. But if Joe doesn't shave his beard, I'll give you his job. Just don't tell him I said that. He's going to give me crap tomorrow for it. All right, boys, thank you very much. I hope to do this again soon. Let's plan that thing with let's do it with the pro contractors. Or I'll go out to your place. I'd like to see what they do. Where is it? Arkansas?
Little Rock.
Little Rock. Let's do it. Arkansas. Let's do that. All right, boys, thank you very much for ending today. Let's do a bunch of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.